You enjoyed my food and you enjoyed my chat. You are a hypocrite. Well, and yet you are not prepared to call me to your house for a cup of tea. And when we are around the corner.
Mr. Deedat, what is this got to do with Islam?
What I was telling you about now, or what I was demonstrating about brainwashing. You see, people get brainwashed. All get brainwashed. We all get brainwashed. The type of society you live in, everybody is color conscious. The African, when I call him Umfetu, he's terrified. Because he's terrified. Umfetu means brother. He is terrified. The Zulu is terrified when I say Umfetu, brother. Because he's thinking, everybody says kafa, 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 and this guy's calling me a brother. What's the motive? You know, he wants something out of me. He's terrified. So why? Because of this setup. Everything is on color, color, color. So the guy is thinking in terms of color. So between Moses and Jesus, 1,300 years. The Jews had a law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And they kept the law.
In the context of a magistrate, it was the law.
Please.
Not
What does that have to do with Islam, Allah?
They 1,300 years, they kept the law, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Now, during these 1,300 years, the character of people changes. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So I was trying to chase the birds with an old-fashioned sling, the one that David used, and by accident it damaged your eye. So you go to the judge and say, look, this guy here did that, damaged my eye. We want to damage his. We want to damage his. So I plead with you. I said, Peter, look, I didn't mean it, man. I was trying to chase the birds from the field, and it was an accident. Forgive me. He said, no, the law says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I said, look, Peter, I'll give you a heifer from my flock. You know, please forgive me. He said, no, the law says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You have a right.
That is not the law.
The magistrates were to extract.
You've made provision for accidents.
Look, you have a right to demand your pound of flesh, like Shiloh. You have a right. So now Jesus Christ, he sees this abuse among the Jews, that they had forgotten forgiveness. So Jesus Christ, a spiritual physician among the Jews, he wants to rectify that. So he's telling them, you must forgive, and forgive, and forgive. He says, how many times, Lord? He says, 70 times 7. Did he say that? 70 times 7. That's 490. Is that to be taken literally? No. No. In others, indefinitely. You see, because now you got a sickness. Your sickness, hard-heartedness is such that you need a remedy which is an antidote, which is another extreme. 70 times 7. You don't start counting and say, look, Peter, this is the 5th time now. Huh? This is the 50th time now. You know, Peter, now look, this is 600 times now. Peter, until which is 407.
Is forgiveness taught in Islam, to forgive your enemies? Is it?
So, yes. So now, Jesus says, forgive 70 times 7. This is an antidote for the sickness. So he has changed the law. From an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, he says, no, you must forgive, you must forgive, you must forgive. 70 times 7.
No, but even in the Old Testament it taught you to forgive.
No, but now the guys were leading according to the letter of the law. So Jesus says, no, you must forgive. You must have compassion and mercy. Women, must we divorce her or not? He said, this has been said by them of old time, that whosoever puts away his wife, let him give her a bill of divorcement. But I say unto you, whosoever puts away his wife, save for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. And whosoever marries her that is divorced committed adultery. He is now straitjacketing the people, tightening the law, because they have become lax. So this is the history of man, that over a period, any law, you are going to start playing with it. So the spiritual physician, the prophet of God, comes along to rectify the situation. Now, in that process, Jesus Christ says, I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. You haven't got that capacity. Who? The Jews, his disciples. You haven't got that capacity. Everything that I tell you, you misunderstand. Everything. And again, Jesus tells them, ye of little faith, ye of little faith. How many times? Dozens of times. And he explains to them as he was explaining to little children, and they can't seem to understand. So he said, are ye even yet without understanding? And when he's provoked further, he said, oh faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I be with you? I said, if Jesus was a Japanese, instead of a Jew, he would have committed the honorable harakiri. Suicide. He would have committed suicide, but no, he couldn't afford it. He's a Jew. So he said, I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. For he shall not speak from himself, but what things so shall he hear, that shall he speak, and he shall declare unto you the things that are to come. He shall glorify me. We say that that Spirit of truth is Muhammad. And he came and glorified Jesus. In the Quran, you read, I have these books all available for you. Muhammad, the natural successor to Christ. This deals with that topic, what I'm telling you now. That Muhammad is the natural successor to Christ in his prophetic teachings and in the evolution of religious history. Muhammad is the natural
So why did
successor.
he come 600 years later he was going to lead those people who Jesus was talking to then? Where were they left? He says, I won't leave you without anyone. For 600 years they were without the Spirit of truth.
But you see, for 4,000 years, we were without a Messiah. Look, my son. Look, Adam sinned. And because of the sin entered the world. And there was no way out except the Son of God coming and dying for your sins.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So
So now, I said, why did God wait for 4,000 years?
He had the sacrifice of the tabernacle as a foreshadow,
No, look,
as a temporary measure until the Christ came.
which is
They used to offer sacrifice for sins. Read the book of Leviticus day after day.
If you had that injection to cure your AIDS, I don't need you to suffer for 4,000 years, giving you all kinds of byways and pathways. I said, look, if there is an infallible cure, that pill, I give it to you. God Almighty waiting for 4,000 years. 4,000 years before sending his Messiah into the world. You're talking about 600, I'm talking about 4,000. Yes, my son.
So I'm asking that I hear about said Muhammad is a prophet. So everything, if you read in the Bible, someone prophet like Jesus was prophesied by another people like Isaiah, prophet Jesus is coming like that. So we want to know who prophet that Muhammad Ali will be a prophet for Christians
Right,
or whatever.
right. You see, in the book of Isaiah, you remember I gave you the explanation about Muhammad, that he was in a cave. And in the cave, he saw this angel. Whether you believe it or not, this is Islamic tradition, history, he saw the angel. And the angel came and commanded him in his mother tongue, Iqra, I told you all that. Read. And he said, I can't read. He said, read. And he said, I can't read. Then he read and he grasped what to repeat. So he repeated. Now that is prophesied in the book of Isaiah. Chapter 29, verse 12. Open it. Read it. Read it. In any book of history of Muhammad, you will find this incident. About read and I can't read. Read and I can't read. In any book of Muhammad's life, written by Muslims or non-Muslim, you will find this anecdote. Isaiah 29:12.
So your whole gospel is based on that verse?
No. This is just one. You want me to give you the all? I can keep you here till midnight tonight. If you got the time, I have the patience. I got the energy to keep you here till midnight.
If we look at it realistically.
No, wait. Let's 29:12.
Yeah.
Open 29:12.
Yes, that's it.
Right. Read it, please. Read it aloud. Let me hear.
Can you read from before and after?
No. Read that verse, then you can read before and after, the whole chapter. 29:12. Please read it aloud, somebody.
May I read this?
Yes, please.
12 says, and the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, read this, I pray thee. And he said, I am not learned.
Right. You see, word for word, and the book, meaning the revelation of God, is given to him that is not learned.
Yeah.
Muhammad is an unlearned prophet. The Quran testifies that he is an ummi, unlearned. The whole world says that he was an unlearned prophet. And he's told to read, and he says, I'm not learned. Word for word, look. Word for word fulfillment. I don't have to stretch it, by hook or by crook trying to fit Muhammad. Word for word. Did Jesus say at any time, I'm not learned?
But
No, the book.
this could apply to thousands, hundreds of thousands.
No, bring me another one. Bring me another prophet in your experience. There are hundreds mentioned there, including Jesus and John. Did anybody at any time when he was given the book of God, revelation of God, he said, read, and he says, I'm not learned.
But Mr. Muhammad, Mr. Deedat, this is a very obscure verse. It can apply.
Right. So now you want another one? Now you want another one?
Jesus.
You want another one?
Yes.
Right.
Let's take another.
Book of Deuteronomy.
Right.
No, I'm answering. You said you want another one, I'll give you the answer. Another one.
No, I didn't understand it. Because if you say...
We are talking about prophecy.
Yeah, that's a prophecy. It means that if you say this book said, it means Chaka and the prophet, you can believe it. Chaka is the first black man to prophet if you hear in the history.
Did Shaka say that?
As prophet, they said that.
No, did Shaka say I'm a prophet?
No.
No, then
if you believe that.
You're wasting time. If Shaka said he's a prophet, you want to analyze. She's prophet.
Can I ask you a question? I've been waiting for a long time.
You asked a question.
I've been asking for a long time.
You have had your opportunities a number of times. You had a number of times. That man asked a question about prophecies.
Yes.
All right, you were into
in the Song of Solomon.
18, all right.
In the Song of Solomon.
Deuteronomy 18. You said Deuteronomy 18. Go on.
That's in the Song of Solomon. I'll show you Muhammad mentioned by name in your Bible. Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. Song of Solomon, chapter 5, verse 16. Please, you can't do two things at the same time, my son.
I don't know.
Wait, let's hear him out.
Chapter 5, verse 16.
That's right, yes. What is
Song
it?
of Solomon.
Yes. That's Song of Solomon, yes. Huh?
Altogether lovely. This my lover.
Right.
This my friend, O daughters of Jerusalem.
Right.
That's him.
Right. Now that word, altogether lovely,
Yeah.
in the Hebrew language is Muhammadim. In the Hebrew Bible. If you have a Hebrew scholar anyway that you know, you ask him to open up Song of Solomon in the Hebrew Bible, chapter 5, verse 16, and it says, the word altogether lovely is the translation of the, and by accident it damaged your eye. So you go to the judge and say, look, this guy here did that, damaged my eye. We want to damage his. We want to damage his. So I plead with you, I says, Peter, look, I didn't mean it, man. I was trying to chase the birds from the field, and it was an accident. Forgive me. You said, no, the law says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You enjoyed my food and you enjoyed my chat. You are a hypocrite.
Well,
and yet you are not prepared to call me to your house for a cup of tea. And when we are around the corner.
Mr. Deedat, what is this got to do with Islam?
What I was telling you about now, what I was demonstrating about brainwashing. You see, people get brainwashed. All get brainwashed. We all get brainwashed. The type of society you live in, everybody is color conscious. The African, when I call him Umfetu, he's terrified. Because he's terrified. Umfetu means brother. He is terrified. The Zulu is terrified when I say Umfetu, brother. Because he's thinking everybody says kafa, 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 and this guy's calling me a brother. What's the motive? You know, he wants something out of me. He's terrified. So why? Because of this setup. Everything is on color, color, color. So the guy is thinking in terms of color. So between Moses and Jesus, 1300 years. The Jews had a law, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And they kept the law.
In the context of the magistrate, it was the law.
Please.
Not
What does this have to do with Islam, Allah?
They 1300 years, they kept the law, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Now, during these 1300 years, the character of people changes. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So I was trying to chase the birds with an old-fashioned sling, the one that David used,